My name is Claire. I'm 42, and I'm not proud of what I said. Not because it wasn't honest, but because it came from a place inside me that had already given up. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. At least, I don't think I did. But you say something like, I miss when men were men to your husband of 18 years, and there's no real way to take it gently, is there? It's been 5 months since Evan packed up 2 duffels and a shaving kit and left our house with barely a glance backward. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. Just stood there, mouth a flat line, like I'd turned into someone he didn't recognize. Maybe I had. Our daughter, Maisie, she's 17 and smarter than either of us deserves, still texts him every morning before school. Still goes over every other weekend. She hasn't looked me in the eye since November. And here's the worst part. I can't even blame them. There was a time Evan made me feel like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous and thrilling every time he looked at me. He was quiet, but not timid. Thoughtful in ways that made me feel seen, like when he'd run his thumb under my jaw just before kissing me, like he was collecting a secret. He used to write me these ridiculous notes and stick them in my coat pockets. One just said, "You make the world less loud." That's what we had, this soft power between us. We didn't need drama or grand gestures. Just a glance. A touch. The kind of intimacy that didn't always end in bed, but always ended with me wanting him near. And then, little things. Little things have a way of becoming everything. I don't even remember the last time he touched me without hesitation. Kisses turned into pecks. Hugs turned into tasks. His hands started feeling like obligations instead of invitations. One night last summer, I leaned into him on the couch while we were watching some crime drama we weren't really invested in. I curled my legs under me and tucked my head into that little hollow under his arm like I used to. He stiffened, just a little. Enough. Enough for me to notice. I stayed there anyway, but I felt cold. Like I was borrowing space that didn't belong to me anymore. That night, I cried in the laundry room. I told myself it was hormones. I don't think Evan ever wanted to stop loving me, but I made it too hard for him to find me. Somewhere along the way, I started resenting how careful he became. How measured. I wanted heat. I wanted someone who'd press me against the fridge on a Tuesday morning just because. Someone who would say, "Get over here," instead of, "Are you okay?" I wanted to feel wanted again, not accommodated. And maybe that's where the words came from. We were in the kitchen. He was cutting peaches. I was drying a dish. It was stupidly quiet. And I looked at his back and said, "I miss when men were men." He didn't even turn around. Just put the knife down. Took off his apron. God, he was wearing an apron, and walked upstairs. He left 2 days later. The moment it changed, really changed, wasn't that fight. It was 6 months earlier on our anniversary. We were sitting at a restaurant we couldn't afford when we first met. I reached across the table, touched his hand. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then he pulled his hand away to take a call from work. He mouthed sorry as he answered. That was it. A 2-second moment. But in that tiny motion, I felt it. Felt how alone I'd become, how invisible. And the worst part was how used to it I'd gotten. That's the thing no one tells you about long-term love. Sometimes it doesn't break with a bang. It just fades, slow and quiet, until one day you look at the person across from you and realize they're already gone. And sometimes, you're the one who sent them. Absolutely. Here's the continuation of Claire's story, deepening the emotional tension and revealing a core misunderstanding rooted in how each of them expressed love and what they both failed to say out loud. Evan's a paramedic. Or was, before he got promoted last year to a training supervisor role. Safer hours, more time at home. That was supposed to be good for us. He thought it would be the thing that fixed everything. That being present physically was the same as being close. And in some ways, I know it was a sacrifice. I know he missed the adrenaline, the chaos, the part of him that felt alive in a crisis. But I think he believed I was the crisis now. And if he could just stay close enough, long enough, maybe he could solve me too. He started being around more, cooking dinner, folding towels, rubbing my shoulders without asking, brushing my hair off my face while I read. Sex, when we had it, was always preceded by these quiet offerings. He'd press kisses into my collarbone like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve without breaking the pieces. And I hated that I didn't want it. Not because I didn't love him, I do, but because every time he touched me, it felt like he was trying to earn something I hadn't offered. Like he wanted to be inside my body before he'd even tried to reach my mind. Once I asked him if he was happy. He smiled, tired. Said, "I'm here, aren't I?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. Here. Here. As if being here was the same as being with me. As if proximity could replace connection. One night, Maisie was at a friend's. I made a big dinner, pasta with lemon and white wine, the kind Evan used to beg me to make after his shifts. He walked in late, still in uniform even though he didn't have to wear it anymore. I watched him drop his gear bag by the door, roll his shoulders like he used to after lifting someone off the street. He came up behind me, arms sliding around my waist, and kissed my neck. I flinched. I didn't mean to, it was involuntary. A kind of body betrayal. But he noticed. Froze. "What was that?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Nothing. I'm tired." He stepped back. "So I don't get to touch you now?" I turned around slowly. "Evan, you only touch me." That hung between us like fog. Dense. Hard to breathe through. "I bring you dinner. I clean the house. I sit next to you even when you don't say 2 words to me," he said. "I rub your back until you fall asleep. I ask you if you're okay every damn day and you either say nothing or give me some cold little fine. What else am I supposed to do?" "I need you to see me," I said, and my voice cracked, but I held my ground. "I need you to ask me what I want. I need you to listen. Not just check things off a list and assume you know what love looks like for me. I do all of this because I love you." "No," I said quietly. "You do all this because you're afraid to sit still long enough to see how far we've drifted." He didn't respond right away. Just looked at me with something like fear behind his eyes. Or maybe grief. And then he said, "I don't know how to fix something if you won't even tell me where it hurts." That was the thing. I didn't know where it hurt. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. Later that night, I lay in bed and felt him reach for me. I let him. His fingers ran along my spine like they were searching for a door. But I couldn't open. Not like that. I pretended to be asleep. I think that was the moment I really lost him, not when I said the words in the kitchen. Not when he walked out the door. But that night in our bed, when he tried to touch me into staying, and I was already halfway gone. It was a Thursday. Not special, not awful. Just another soft blur of a day, the kind that happens after you've been married too long to mark time by anniversaries or vacations. Evan was home early. The dishwasher was humming. Maisie was upstairs pretending to do homework. I was chopping cucumbers for a salad. I remember the sound of the knife against the board was the only thing keeping my mind still. "One slice, too." "Don't think, just move." He came up behind me, hands warm against my hips. That familiar pressure, his chest brushing my back. "Smells good," he said into my hair. I murmured, not turning. He didn't move away. One hand slid around to rest just above my belly, the other ghosting along the waistband of my jeans. He kissed that spot behind my ear. It used to make me melt. But instead, I stiffened. Not violently, just enough. My shoulder crept up in a silent flinch. I don't even think he noticed. Or maybe he did. Because he kept going gently, as if coaxing me might wake something. His hand dipped lower. Not crude, just familiar. Still, my skin didn't light up like it used to. It just braced. "Evan," I said too quickly, too sharply. "I'm just trying to finish this." He paused. Just a second. Then, in a voice too light to be real, he said, "Okay, sorry. Just couldn't help myself." He gave my butt a quick slap. Playful. A thing he's done 1,000 times, from our 20s to our 40s. But this time, my stomach turned. Not from the touch, exactly. From the performance of it. Like he was acting out a version of us I didn't feel part of anymore. I turned around, forced a smile. Not right now, okay? He stepped back, raising his hands in surrender. No problem. I just thought we were having a moment. I'm tired, I said. It's been a long week. You say that every week. There was no bite in his voice, just confusion. The kind that hurts more than anger because it means he still doesn't get it, and part of me doesn't know how to explain it without sounding cruel. He stood there a second longer, then went to set the table. And I hated myself for not reaching for him, for not finding a way to close the distance. But even more, I hated how every kiss, every touch, every hand on my body came with this silent expectation. This undercurrent of, now we're getting somewhere. Like physical closeness was the price of admission to be seen. I turned back to the cucumbers. The board was soaked from the juices. I'd over-chopped them into mush. And in the quiet hum of the kitchen, all I could think was, why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened over pasta. Fettuccine with mushrooms and cream sauce, Evan's favorite. I made it out of habit more than love, like I was following a ritual to summon a version of us I didn't believe in anymore. We sat at the table, just the two of us. Maisie was at a debate tournament out of town. The candles were his idea. He even put on that old jazz playlist we used to listen to when we were dating. It should have felt romantic. It felt like a stranger trying to impress me in my own home. He poured wine. I thanked him. He reached across the table, touched my hand. You look beautiful tonight. I smiled too quickly, like a reflex. Thanks. Then we ate in silence for a while. Forks clinking. Miles between us. He reached for my hand again halfway through the meal. Held it. Rubbed circles into my palm like he used to do in bed after we'd made love. I've been thinking, he said, maybe we should get away for a weekend. Just you and me. No stress. Reset things a little. My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes. I really did, but something in me curled up instead. Sure, I said, and my voice cracked on the word. He looked up. What? I said sure. I took another bite even though I couldn't taste anything. Claire. He leaned in. Talk to me. I'm trying here. That did it. The soft concern in his voice, that gentle good man tone, somehow made it worse. I dropped my fork. It clattered against the plate, too loud. I know you're trying, Evan, I snapped. I see it. The candles, the playlist, the compliments out of nowhere, the hand holding, God, I'm not blind. He blinked. So, what's the problem? The problem, I said, tears already burning, is that it all feels like an act. Like you're trying to be some textbook version of a husband and hoping I'll just magically fall back into the role of the grateful wife who wants to jump into bed because you remembered my favorite wine. He sat back, jaw tight. I'm doing what I can, Claire. You don't tell me what you need. You barely speak to me unless Maisie's around. What do you want me to do? Nothing. I stood up, the chair scraping behind me. I want you to stop trying to touch your way back into my heart. I want you to hear me. I want to stop feeling like sex is the only thing holding this marriage together. He stared at me, stunned. Then his voice dropped, low and angry. You know what you said to me? That day in the kitchen? I miss when men were men. You remember that? I froze. I thought that was just you lashing out. I let it go. But maybe you meant it. Maybe you don't want me anymore. Maybe you want someone who drags you into bed without asking. Who slams doors and never folds laundry and doesn't give a damn about your feelings. Is that what you miss? His voice cracked on that last word. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest heaved, but nothing came out. He stood, took his plate to the sink. Didn't look back. I sat down in the chair he left empty. The candle between us flickered like it was mocking me. I don't know how long I stayed there, staring into the wax. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to say what I said. But it came out of me like a splinter finally forcing itself through the skin. And still, I hated myself for it. Because Evan is good. He is trying. And I keep recoiling from his goodness like it's poison. But it's not in my hate. It's the version of myself I've become in this marriage. Quiet. Disconnected. Angry without language. I wiped my eyes with the cloth napkin we never use. And whispered, to no one, why does everything have to turn into sex? But what I really meant was, why do I feel so alone even when I'm loved? It didn't explode after that night. It just hollowed. A quiet settled in that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that sticks to your ribs. The kind you carry into other rooms. We went through the motions, coffee brewed, laundry folded, texts about groceries, reminders about Maisie's tournament schedule. Our voices were softer now, like we were speaking through glass. Even the arguments stopped. That scared me more than the yelling ever did. Evan stopped trying to touch me. No shoulder squeezes. No middle-of-the-night brushes against my thigh. He'd leave a cup of tea on the nightstand, then disappear into the guest room before I even woke up enough to say thank you. And I missed him. God, I missed him. But I didn't know how to reach for someone I'd already pushed away. One night, I found him sitting in the garage. Not doing anything. Just sitting on an old milk crate beside the shelves, elbows on his knees, staring at the concrete floor like it had answers. He didn't hear me come in. He looked tired. Not just in his body, in his being. I wanted to say something. Anything. But what came out was, you left the bathroom light on again. He blinked slowly. Didn't respond. And that killed me. Because months ago, he would have made a joke, offered a sheepish smile, maybe pulled me into a hug with wet hands just to make me squeal. Now? Just quiet acceptance. As if he no longer had the right to be light with me. I lingered in the doorway. What are you doing out here? Thinking, he said. Then after a beat, trying not to think. That sounded more like the truth. I nodded. Okay, I'll leave you to it. I turned to go. Claire, he said, just before I stepped inside. I miss you. I froze. Not because I didn't want to hear it, but because I didn't know what to do with it. I turned my head halfway, not enough to face him. I'm still here. I know, he said. That's the hardest part. That night, I lay awake in bed long after the house went quiet. I could still feel the ache in his voice. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped thinking about what I hadn't been getting. I thought about what I'd stopped giving. Not just sex. Not just smiles or forgiveness. I'd stopped offering safety. Emotional shelter. And Evan, he wasn't some cardboard cutout of a good man. He was flesh and blood and weariness and love, and I had treated him like a walking disappointment simply for not being able to read my mind. I curled up into myself and sobbed, quiet, ugly, guilt-soaked sobs that tasted like shame. I missed the way his fingers used to trace my collarbone without needing anything in return. I missed how he used to dance with me in the kitchen while water boiled. I missed the smell of his neck and the sound of his car pulling into the driveway and the way he whispered, "Hey, baby," like we were still 27 and reckless. But I also missed me. The version of me who let love in. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen holding a mug of coffee, watching the sun stretch across the tile. Evan walked in, hair damp, already dressed for work. He nodded. Morning. I almost let it pass. Almost said morning back and went on pretending we were okay enough. But I set the mug down, turned to face him. Do you want to try again? I asked, my voice smaller than I meant it to be. He looked at me like he was trying to decide if he heard me right. Then his face softened, almost painfully. I don't know, he said honestly. Do you? I swallowed. My chest ached. I think I do. He stepped closer. Not touching me. Just close enough that I could feel his breath. Then let's not keep pretending, he said. Let's be real this time. Even if it's messy. I nodded. Tears in my throat, but none on my face. I don't know how to fix it, I whispered. I'm not asking you to fix it, he said gently. Just don't walk away. I didn't. Not that day. We tried. For a while, we really tried. The next few days weren't romantic, they were awkward. Clumsy. We bumped into each other in our own routines, like dance partners who'd forgotten the steps. but at least we were talking. Honestly, even when it stung. We sat on the porch one night after Maisie went to bed, wrapped in the blanket we used to share during cold mornings with coffee. The silence between us was warmer now, less like an accusation, more like a question waiting for a real answer. He said things I didn't know he'd been carrying. I feel like I've been loving you in a language you stopped understanding. And I said things I'd been afraid to admit. I've been punishing you for not being someone I can't even define. We didn't fix everything, but there were fewer landmines in the conversation. We started naming the ways we needed love, me, through words and emotional safety, him, through touch and steady presence. We made rules. No touching without asking. No brushing off hurt with silence. No assuming one "I love you" covers a week of distance. Still, some nights were hard. He'd reach for me in bed, and I'd flinch out of old habit, then whisper, "Sorry." And he'd just hold my hand instead, say, "We're okay." Some nights, I wanted him so badly I cried. Not out of lust, but out of longing to feel like us again. But not every story heals just because people want it to. One night, I found him asleep on the couch. He had Maisie's blanket thrown over him and a book half falling from his chest. His mouth slightly open, brow furrowed even in sleep. That tiny crease that showed up after years of worry. I watched him for a long time. Just watched him. And it hit me, he still loved me. He probably always would, in some quiet, loyal way. But that heat we used to have, that almost gravitational pull, it had dimmed. Not out of spite. Out of erosion. Soft, slow, imperceptible erosion. We were both exhausted from trying to love someone who kept changing. I sat beside him gently so I wouldn't wake him. And after a while, I leaned in and kissed his forehead. Light. Reverent. "I miss when we made each other feel alive," I whispered. He stirred, barely. Then I walked upstairs alone. Not because I didn't love him, but because I finally understood love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means letting go of the version of us that no longer exists and forgiving yourself for not being able to bring it back. You want to know the worst part? I still love him. I love the way he folds the towels wrong but always tries. I love the sound of his laugh when he forgets to hold it in. I love the man he is with our daughter, steady, kind, there. That word matters more than most people realize. There. And I know he loved me too. Probably still does. But love isn't a lifeline when the rope is frayed and neither of you knows how to tie knots anymore. I used to think the scariest part of losing someone was the moment they leave. But it's not. It's the slow erosion. The everyday silences that used to feel like peace turning into pressure. The kiss that used to spark something going cold on your mouth. It's realizing your body still moves toward them, out of habit, not hunger. It's knowing they'd still hold you if you asked, but not knowing if you want to be held that way anymore. And yeah, I did say it. I said I missed when men were men. What I meant was, I missed when I felt safe in desire. When strength didn't mean control, but protection. When love felt less like a negotiation and more like a current we were both caught in, drifting toward each other without trying so hard. Now, our daughter still talks to him. They're close. I'm glad. He should be in her life. But she doesn't call me as much. Not since the split. Not since she overheard more than she should have. Not since I became the one who left. Sometimes I wonder if she'll forgive me for that. Sometimes I wonder if I'll forgive me for that. But this, what I'm telling you now, it's not about blame. Or regret. It's just the truth. Love can still be real even when it dies. And maybe, just maybe, walking away isn't the opposite of loving someone. Maybe it's the hardest way of loving them right. 10.